Now look where we are today. We are at Alliance. Check this out. Alliance RV. Alright, so we're going to be touring the Paradigm here in the Alliance factory. That floor.
You don't like the gray?
No.
Oh my word, you are in the minority for
Really?
sure. Yes. we've had such good feedback on the gray that every single line now is that gray. Valor, Paradigm, Avenue, and Delta all went to it. It has been that popular.
It's better than the brown that was popular for the previous 30 years.
Yeah.
The gray.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm not a fan either. But
No? Oh wow.
I like it.
It's neutral enough that a lot of people can do what they want with accent colors. So it's kind of a nice in between. I don't know if you guys ever saw Avenue when it was white, like the barn style. So that one either people loved or they hated. It was like kind of 50-50. And then we went to the brown. This is kind of in the middle. So we're trying to hit that sweet spot of 80-20. 80% love it, 20% say not so sure. Well, welcome you guys again to Alliance. This is our PDI bay, our pre-delivery inspection bay. So this is where all the units will come to get finished off. Any last minute detail work will be done here, as well as a variety of system checks, which also get done on the line in that final finish and ahead of that. Some of the system checks that we do will pressurize the tanks, we'll flush all the tanks, we'll put fog through the ventilation. We don't know if you're going to get a sewer smell coming back through because something wasn't tightened up unless we do something like that. If fog comes from behind light fixtures or from behind cabinetry, then we know we have an issue that we need to button up behind those walls. We have a shaker machine at the end of this plant, all Paradigm, and right now Benchmark, a few of them. We'll go on there, we'll vigorously shake them for 10 minutes, kind of simulating those really rough roads. It's helped us a lot with trim work and with securing doors a little bit better. We'll take a few units at random from the other factories as well, but since it's right here in this factory, all the units in here will go through it. We put a rain bay in our newest plant, plant 4. So we'll take a few units at random over there, completely douse them with water from every direction with the slides out for 30 minutes, with the slides in. If there's any kind of leaks, we'll check other units around it, make sure they don't have the same problem going on. Go back, test it again, make sure everything's buttoned up nice and tight before we get the green light to go ahead and go. Once a unit gets to about this position in PDI, they'll send out a text to our sales team. If someone's available, they'll come out and walk it with red tape, marking anything they see that might be an issue so that it has to be addressed before it ever pulls out. So just like we're doing more and more tests all the time, the more sets of eyes we can get on it, especially fresh sets of eyes is really the idea here, just so that we can make sure it's at the quality we expect it to be before it pulls out these doors. I don't know how much you guys know about the Alliance story, but Ryan and Coley Brady are our two co-founders. They're brothers. Their father helped start Heartland RV, which eventually sold out to Thor. They felt like there were things that could be improved upon as far as customer service and quality. So in 2019, this was all cornfields, and they started Alliance. They didn't build anything for the first 6-7 months after they announced the name. They just collected feedback from full-timers, weekenders. They started collecting their sales team, which most of those guys had at least 10 or more years experience in the industry. So they came with a wealth of knowledge where those warranty issues were for other manufacturers, and that played a part in our build process. 2020 was our first model year. They built their first 16 Paradigm, which was our flagship line, over in a building that was already here. It was our parts department, but we even grew out of that. Now it's liquefied. You might have seen it on your way in. Our parts department is actually across the street on Beck before you turn on to Benchmark, just because we needed more space. So about every 6 months to a year, a new factory has popped up. The one that we just came out of is our corporate office, but on the back end of that is Avenue, our mid-profile, so think baby brother to Paradigm. This plant is primarily Paradigm, however, we're doing Benchmark through it as well, which is our new destination trailer. The next plant back is Delta, our bumper pole, and then the plant after that is Valor, our toy hauler. On the back end of the property is our lamination facility where all of our walls are built. Parts of it are temperature and humidity controlled for that bonding process to happen the way it needs to. When we first started in the industry, not everyone was doing that, but here in Indiana, we can get every type of weather. So sometimes within the same day. So it's really important to control that environment to make sure everything comes together the way it's supposed to. And a lot more manufacturers have followed suit since then. So what we're gonna do is go all the way to the other end of the building where the raw chassis are. We'll walk through everything in reverse, but we'll talk through everything coming back this way so don't feel like you're missing anything. Do watch for cords and debris. Like I said, this is a long day for them, so they're gonna still be working around us. We're gonna try to stay out of their way as much as possible, but they might move us around a little bit as we're talking, and that's fine, we just need to be aware. Photo and video is completely okay. We don't have a policy against it unless we have a prototype, which happens all the time. However, they haven't notified me of one, so whoops, if that's in there. I'll point it out if I notice, but I don't think we have any at this time. Any questions before we get going?
Are we actually going to see paradigms or are they going to
Yep,
benchmark?
so good question. Because we have been doing shorter runs of benchmark through here, but this is the end of a run, and I went to check, and paradigms all the way the rest of the way. So we do have a big run of benchmark coming up here. I think it's at the end of July, and that'll be a run of like 40 plus. At that point, we'll have to tell people that paradigm's not available for that short time period, but for you guys today, it's in there. Any other questions? All right. You want to get a feel for how thick that is? That would be the time to do it. This is the very top layer, the PVC membrane. All of our raw chassis will come through the overhead door back here. We'll use a crane flipper to flip it completely upside down. That way we're working with gravity rather than against it to install that underbelly. It also means our workers aren't on their back all day flying in and out, which is really hard on their bodies. Now with the new Coastie CCS suspension, a lot of this will come already on the frame and a lot of it's welded on. But they'll put the tires on there before they flip it back over and then bring it to continue doing the tanks and the plumbing and the wiring. So this Coastie CCS system, this is our new standard. It's loaded with springs. It is close to independent suspension, without it actually being independent suspension. It's going to come with H-rated tires, 8K axles, just like independent suspension will. The difference would be that independent suspension also comes with disc brakes, and right now that's not an official option, although it will be soon with the current CCS. And then you may have noticed the Helix pin box as well in the front. So the Helix pin box reduces vibration by about 30%. This particular suspension system reduces it by 50%. So they were doing tests where they would put a glass of water on a countertop right around, and the glass would still be sitting there when they came back into the unit. So pretty. So what's the old? What was the old one? That's what we have. Blue spring. Yeah, but then so did you do a comparison of what was it 20% the last time, or like that things fall off? You know what I mean? Well, the leaf springs were something that had been used in the industry for years and years. It was the standard. So it wasn't like for yours, if it was one before we did this, there was an extra layer of leaf springs compared to other manufacturers. So you had 4K per tire instead of 3.5K as a full profile unit. So it was bulked up, but it's not going to give you the vibration reduction like this is going to do with those springs. So it's just going to help with the system itself as far as breakage and the smiley face, we call it, with those leaf springs not sagging the other way by adding another layer.
Did you mention anti-lock brake?
This, no, I forget. I would have to ask.
Okay.
The tank sizes for Paradigm, it's going to be a 98-gallon press. If you look to the left side at the bottom of that white tank, you should be able to see the bars coming across. We put a steel cage underneath there. No manufacturer is going to tell you to run with that thing full. At 8 pounds per gallon and 98 gallons, that's a whole lot of weight. but we know with more and more boondocking and full timing, sometimes it's necessary to go short distances with it, at least partially full, if not most of the way full, so we put that steel cage in there to help reinforce it. It'll always, Paradigm will always have 253-gallon gray for 106 total, 1 to 253-gallon black, depending on if you have a second half bath or not, and if there's room in the chassis. One example of where that isn't the case, where you don't have room for a second 53-gallon black, even though you have a second half bath, is the 385 FL. It's the front living, tons of storage space underneath with a roll-out tray to put all that storage on, but then that takes up all that room in the chassis area, so you don't have room for another tank. What chassis is this one? I'll have to look up front, but I know there were some Coasties coming through and having a cage back here makes me think it could be that, especially since this is up here, the fresh tank is, so I'm guessing it's a dual seat, but I'd have to look. PEX plumbing throughout. Shut-off valves for every major plumbing point. With 2026, one of the changes we did from Paradigm was to put the water manifold system in the pass-through like Valor has right now. We started that in Valor, I want to say end of 2024, maybe in 25. But got great feedback from it. People loved it, so now we brought it over to Paradigm. But that makes it possible. If you do have a leak, you can shut off just that area, still have full functionality of your coach until you get where you need to go, diagnose the problem, and take care of it. It's not a can't stop situation. We do color and number coding for that 12-volt wiring system, not spaghetti wiring, because we want you to be able to diagnose problems and track it back to the source. We do 12-volt refrigerators across the board. We don't offer anything else anymore at this point. Every unit, pretty much every line, comes with at least one solar panel. So once you add a battery in, which no line comes with a battery automatically except Valor, because so many people are boondocking and things like that. But once you add a battery in, which can be lead acid or lithium, it's prepped for both, you can run that refrigerator, your light, your USB ports, not your GFI, that's 110 power, but your USB ports, and your slides, all without needing an inverter. So giving you some capabilities if you're on the road and just stopping at a gas station or something like that. You're not going to be able to run your ACs or your microwave or anything like that. That's going to require an inverter, but you do have some accessibility with that solar panel once you add a battery. Questions about this part? 2025, I want to say, we started doing the electric gate valves. So this is a nice opportunity to be able to see where those hookups are, just because it's an open frame and seeing where those mechanisms are. So for this, here, and then those two.
Electric gate valves. And then there's those two. Yeah, I have the Rotoflex on mine.
Oh yeah.
And this is pretty neat.
Yeah. Being privately owned, we make a lot of changes on the fly. This is an example of that. We used to use the shinier flex ducting that can shrink a little bit easier, can tear a little bit easier. This is something we started using towards the end of 2025, before the 2026 model year. This is a small example, but we do running changes all the time. Being privately owned, we're able to do that. Do we have customers who say, really, I just ordered, you couldn't have put that on mine? Yes, of course we do. But if it's going to benefit a vast majority, then going ahead and implementing it just makes more sense to us rather than waiting for a model year changeover. Flooring, so it's going to be an aluminum frame, batten fiber insulation throughout, a layer of radiant foil, which looks like aluminum foil, but it's similar to what Americans I wear after a big race, deflecting heat, keeping the inside consistent. We're going to see it in the roofing as well. Then a 5/8" screw board, which you get in the longest pieces possible, because wherever you have a seam, it's eventually going to rub and pop up. Then we wrap it all in Darko, a waterproof material, and put the laminate flooring on top of that. So you get about 4 inches of thickness for that flooring. That allows us to run stiffer ductwork through the floor so that you don't have as much flint ducting. In our Avenue and Delta lines, the floors are quite as thick. We use composite and block foam for those insulator values, but just a price point difference so that you have more flex ducting in those, not as much in Paradigm or the full profile Ballard. And then the pass-throughs will also be all aluminum framing. Anywhere that we're going to do screws, we'll stuff with wood because you think of a pop can, you can rip a screw out pretty easily. You put wood in there for that extra grip. Of our own cabinetry in-house as we can. A lot of manufacturers outsource their cabinetry, which sounds like a great idea until you get things brought in that are broken or damaged, and then you're shipping it back out, waiting for things to ship back in. Not only that, it's a factory environment. Things are going to get broken on the line. It's sure to happen sooner or later. So instead of fixing it just good enough to pass inspections or deciding we have to take this whole piece out, we have professional carpenters in each of our buildings that can fix it the way it needs to be. So just again, keeping a thumb on that quality control. I mentioned our lamination facility where all of our outer walls are built. The outer wall is going to be an aluminum frame, block foam insulation, which you can see at the bottom there. Once again, everywhere that's going to get screws and stuff with wood, which you can see coming out of the bottom of one of those. You've probably heard the term Asdel, a composite material a lot of manufacturers are using on this outer wall. We do too. Asdel is awesome because it's not going to absorb water or moisture. If water does get inside that wall, it's either going to pass straight through or evaporate. It's not going to create rot or mold or mildew because it can't absorb into it. But we take it a step further, and instead of using Luan on this inner wall, we use another layer of composite. So, Luan being wood-based, you think of a piece of cardboard, one drop of water gets on it, it's slowly going to spread and expand, and that's what can lead to contamination, which is a very common industry problem. And it's not an easy fix. So to combat that possibility, we use composite on the inner wall as well. It's lighter weight, it's more environmentally friendly, it's a better insulator, it is more expensive. That's why a lot of manufacturers are using it. But we feel like to protect your investment, it's worth it over the long run. Over in lamination, they'll build the wall as one solid piece. They completely route out the windows and the doors using laser technology. That's way it's as exact as possible, no degree of human error. They partially route out the slides about 90% of the way, as you can see. Once that wall comes up to be used, they'll finish routing it out, mark that slide with a VIN and a model number, and it'll travel on the back end of the building being built. That way when it comes back into play, it fits perfectly. Again, no degree of human error. We don't mass produce our slides for that reason, but also over time, if you have any kind of discoloration, you don't have a super white slide out and a little bit off around it, which makes it look way worse. It's all going to age the same way because it's all from the same wall. Is everyone okay with stairs? We'll get a little quieter and a little cooler up there.
Thank you.
All right.
Boy, it's cooler up here.
It is cooler upstairs.
It is. There's only one of our buildings that doesn't have a conference room like this that's air conditioned. I had to do a tour in that yesterday, and I was like, there was a guy that did a tour in here, and I'm like, you're so lucky you got AC for a little bit. So this is kind of a cool perspective. It gives you a bird's eye view, especially of that roofing. So the roof trusses are going to be 5.5-inch crown, 16-inch to center, which makes them fully serviceable, fully walkable. In between those trusses will be batten fiber insulation, which also goes over the cap. Then a layer of radium foil, which you can see sticking out down further, some that are a little closer to the end of the line. That will go over the cap as well, and then the entire length of the unit. Same exact material we're using in the flooring that we talked about downstairs.
All one piece?
All one piece, yep. Then a layer of roof decking, an adhesive layer, which is what they're applying right now, and then that PVC membrane, which they'll pull across in just a minute. You can see that ductwork coming up from the gray to black tanks. They'll cut those down a little bit further. You can see all that wiring coming up through there. We prep for extra things just as a standard. We prep for extra solar, we prep for that backup camera, but we know people are gonna put things on the roof that we didn't anticipate. So we do a wire chase in each of our units. That way you're not trying to fish down lines yourself if you do add something up there down into that main control area. It's usually, will just look like a cap, just like the ventilation looks like, but it'll actually go through typically to the pass-through, and our service team can help identify where to find that as well on a unit. We went to Coleman Mock and we asked them what's the quickest, most efficient way to cool down a small space. They said just like a car, dump AC is really the way to go. Anytime you have ductwork, you're losing around 20% of your cold air in the ducts alone before it ever gets to you. So we try to minimize ductwork as much as possible. Obviously with bigger and bigger units all the time, the dual suites, which we saw at the beginning of the line, that's 2 full bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, a loft space. So obviously more ductwork there, but we have started using a new airflow system to push even more of that cold air out where it's ducted into bathrooms. We try to keep that main living direct dump just to get as much cool air as we possibly can in that area. Our 3 AC units on Paradigm are going to be 13.5 BTU each, which means you can run 2 off of a 30 amp, all 3 off of a 50 amp. They have a semi-soft start in them. It's not a full soft start, so sometimes people opt to put on a full soft start after the fact. But I've been told by customers that they can run all 3 ACs off of a 30 amp if they start out low. So it's just kind of up to you testing out the system. Obviously not every campground is created equal, and not every 30 amp service is truly 30 amps, so it really depends on what you're working with in terms of that. As far as that PVC membrane, I'll talk about it before we go back outside because it's a little quieter in here. PVC isn't new to the industry by any means, but it is newer in the use as a roof membrane. In the past, TPO has been more commonly used. TPO is rubber-based, which means it's going to absorb heat. It's also going to contract over time, which is why with a TPO roof, you often want to be checking those seals to make sure it hasn't pulled away. PVC is more deflective of heat. So at any given time to go up on the roof and service one of our units, it's going to be cooler up there than a TPO roof, which ultimately means the unit as a whole will be cooler. It's relatively maintenance-free. You don't have to condition it or anything like that. Some people like to wash it off with a non-abrasive soap. That's fine. Definitely be making sure the slides are clear of debris. That's just common practice. And then you also definitely want to be checking the seals, but that's because sealant will break down, not because it's going to pull away the way TPO would. We started with, I think it was a 12-year warranty for our PVC membrane. Now we do lifetime. All past models are grandfathered into that. If you back into a campsite and snag that PVC membrane with a branch, you can go to your local hardware store, get a PVC patch kit. We'll walk you through how to patch it up, no big deal, because it's the same chemistry, the same components. With TPO, there's nothing that exactly matches it to try to patch it. So you can try to patch it. It's not gonna last forever. I'm gonna guess it's gonna void your warranty. So with TPO, I've heard of people replacing the roof for 10 grand plus. So it kind of helps to minimize that possibility.
Has anyone shared with you the glove which is Eternabond tape?
The what?
Eternabond tape?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Our savior.
Some people ask for pieces of PVC from our parts department just to have on hand. I know they're willing to do that. There's a variety of little pieces, but sometimes people just want kits ready to go just in case.
So we should just pick up pieces as we want.
You know, I have had people on tours collect screws as we're going through. They're like, you never have the one you need when you need it. And I'm like, all right, guys, we're just going to sweep them up. If you want to take some screws off the floor.
I have a Thor. I just drive 10 miles and all kinds of new screws show up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Better off the floor than the driveway.
Slide floors, we can look at them when we go down there. I believe it's that true board down there, and I don't know what else. The bedroom slide I know is composite now.
Okay.
Like as of when? As of, I want to say 2025, but maybe not the full year.
Okay.
Partial 2025. Yeah.
We're probably before.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this part?
How about, we have the Avenue with the Furrion air conditioners.
Yeah.
So are they going to switch to Furrion on these, or?
That hasn't been decided for sure, but there has been talk of it. That chill cube, that 18K is pretty impressive.
Yes. Yeah.
So we actually have had some Paradigm special orders ask for that specifically, so I know they're kind of testing the waters with it. So.
Yeah, I can run mine off of a Blue Eddy a mid-sized Blue Eddy solar generator,
Okay.
which is pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. The power draw is so low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at somewhere between like 300 watts to 15 if it's really maxed out,
Yeah.
but usually it's like 700 to 800.
Okay.
Pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
it's an impressive system that does a really good job.
18,000 BTU off of 500 watts.
Yeah. Now that's not when it's really hot out. That's if it's like 79 out or something.
You have to charge on lighter fluid, but.
If it's 100 degrees out, it's gonna be pulling 1500 watts.
Right, yeah.
But I really don't want to be out where it's 100 degrees out, but it happens.
Yeah. Texas in March.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll be in Texas in summer, the next 2 months, I think.
Why?
Our daughter lives there. So I'll go to the joint base, Sam Houston, and we'll spend maybe like 3 weeks at Sam Houston.
So just a few things before we go back downstairs. We have one of the highest retention rates in the industry for our workers, which we intentionally try to do. Obviously, every time we're training new people, then their quality is going to suffer to some degree. So the more that we can retain, especially with shutdown periods, which are very common to this industry. I just mentioned the 4th of July holiday, which is a couple weeks shutdown period. That's typical. But in the past, over Christmas, the industry as a whole has seen like 1 to 2, maybe more months of shutdown period. We try to minimize that as much as possible. We'll do 4-day work weeks leading up to a shutdown period just to have it as short as possible. We do different things with simple machines like this suction cup machine down here. It will lift the cap, perfectly put it in place while they drill it on. There are some manufacturers that still have their workers lift up the cap, which is not good for the fiberglass and not good for the workers. So simple machines like that do a lot for our product and for the workers. We built all of our factories 8 feet taller than the industry norm, and that was to put in windows for natural light. Might seem like a really small detail, but when our workers come in and it's dark out and don't leave until 2 or 3 typically in the afternoon, it's a huge morale boost to have that natural light coming in from every direction. You heard a few different types of music as we were going through here. Typically you hear just about every genre known to man as we're walking through at the highest point of the workday. One speaker competing against the next. Earbuds for music are not allowed. Communication is too important and it's a safety risk. But of course music makes the workday a little bit better, so we do allow music in that regard as from speakers. We officially start an hour later than the industry norm. So whereas a lot of manufacturers will start at 4 or 5 a.m., we officially start at 6. That's not to say we don't have workers come in earlier than that just because they're used to this industry, but a lot of times their same teammates will kind of match up, work a little bit later so that they're on the same time schedule when they get in the morning. They're still, again, out of here by 2, 3 in the afternoon getting kids off the bus. We only have 1 shift, and then that's it for the day. Okay, so they are protoing. So we would just ask you not, this is a proto. I wondered why they were all standing there. I assumed it would be. This is where those slides come back into play. We're gonna have a bolt seal on the outside, bolt seal on the inside, 2 rain guard flaps, rain guard and a whisk guard at the bottom, and then 2 corner guards. The industry as a whole, people were saying they could see a little bit of light when they brought their slide in or out. Where there's light, there's potential for bugs or water critters. So we put those corner guards on there to help eliminate that possibility. Anytime there's a window on the side of a slide, it's gonna act as a natural channel changer for these rain guard flaps. It's not foolproof. You always wanna check it just to make sure it's all going the same direction. If it doesn't have a window, it's gonna have little white tabs, which we can walk around here and I'll point them out. Those little tabs are just on there with adhesive, so if they come off, you can contact our parts department. They'll ship out some new ones. Sometimes people like longer strips as well, so you can request that. We'll go around here. So these are what those tabs look like. Earlier models, and sometimes, although I think they're all starting to switch to white, but earlier models or some with more black will be black tabs.
And what does that, what function does that do?
Just flips the direction of those flaps.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've had people come on tours before and say, oh, I didn't know those had a point. I took them off. Don't take them off. They do have a point.
They wouldn't be there if they.
Right, we don't spend money on extras. So here's that water manifold system. Instead of shut-off valves at every major plumbing point, underneath the toilet, underneath the sink, now they're all out here, centrally located in the pass-through. We started doing a water filtration system in all of our lines as well. So that's a new standard that will be in all of them. A while back, we started doing the slide and awning controls in the pass-through, just so you don't have to have someone outside yelling, whoa! They're inside as well. We still hardwire everything. We've just heard too many horror stories with using your phone or a digital display. So we still hardwire everything that goes onto our units. When we get into Paradigm, another new feature in 2026 is a ceiling fan. So you'll notice that. This particular model is a dual suite. We must have a very large run of them. So you'll see the trash chute. This one and the 382 RK, which is the rear kitchen, are the only two in Paradigm that had any kind of wasted space, which we use to do a trash chute. So you don't have to take the trash through the actual unit itself, and then it has a lift up area for on that countertop space so you can put trash in it.
Where's the trash chute? I don't see it.
Oh. And then
Trash
it
chute.
just has that little.
Okay. That's interesting. A trash chute. Put your trash can there, drop it in.
So there's no spider control, touchpad panel control. Yeah.
So this whole area leading up to PDI is going to be final finish. There, now it's going to be have all the furniture, start adding in those mattresses, TVs, things we don't want damaged earlier in the line. More tests all through here before they get to PDI. This is an example of a system stop block. We have about, I think it's 6 or 7 system stop areas. Of course, we have paperwork that shows whether or not this particular unit has passed this system stop. But this is a really easy visual reminder to everyone working on it that it either hasn't passed it or it hasn't had the test run on it yet. So one person and one person only will move this, just making sure nothing's slipping through the cracks in that regard. We did go to a Victron system for our solar versus we used to use Renogy. So now Paradigm has as a standard a 400 watt panel on the top instead of a 320. If you went to the Solar Plus option, you would have 3 400 watt panels and a 400 amp hour lithium battery one system rather than the 3 100.
Does it include an inverter?
Say it again.
An inverter?
It is not inverter prepped. However, I'm told that everything connects to it except the ACs. So you would need the Solar Plus if you wanted to do that. Now with our Solar Plus option, the ACs will come with a soft start. That's the only way we do it in factory. And then obviously you have an inverter with that, and an upgraded charge controller and everything else. All right. So please keep in mind that this hasn't finished all the build process. However, this is our closest to done Paradigm, so I do want to give you the opportunity to go inside and look at one. It still has 2 more build stops before PDI and going through everything, so you're probably going to see a lot of tape. Before we go on, I do want to point out the red tape on the oven, and you may have seen other colored pieces of tape on the units. Those are our quality control. We have about 4 or 5 different colors of tape. The color is going to indicate where the problem was picked up on the line, so if we keep having the same problem recurring, we can go back to those teams, address it, make sure it doesn't keep happening. Having our PDI attached to each building is huge for our quality control. It kind of blows my mind that there are manufacturers out there that have a separate campus for their PDI, and they're not PDIing all their units like we are. We PDI every single one. So if we had a separate campus, imagine sending Paradigm, Avenue, Valor, Delta, all of them to the same people, checking out all these different types of units. Here they specialize in Paradigm. They know what they're looking for with Paradigm. Not only that, if there is a consistent problem, especially with the system or something bigger, imagine the trickle effect, how long it takes to get back to the factory, back to the production line where it started. Whereas here, it's not uncommon for us to pull team members who do a certain job fix it in PDI because we don't want it to keep happening, it slows down this line, and you can bet it doesn't keep happening.
Is there a service center / campground here for owners?
Yeah, so we have two smaller. It's not the same as like how big dealerships are, but we have one at the end of this building, a service area, and then we have one in plant 4, our newest plant. Two different service centers. We'll take in a lot more service units during our shutdown period. That also offers jobs for people who maybe would be off during that time period, but we can't take in as many as a lot of dealerships, so we get really creative with service in terms of being privately owned. We can ship out a piece to you if you feel pretty handy, and we can walk you through how to install it. We'd much rather do that than have you out of your unit for weeks, if not months, waiting for your dealership. If it can be an easy fix. We use a lot of RV techs. We do have our service center. Other dealerships can take you in. We can't force them to, but that's an option too. So we really try to get as creative as possible with those options. Watch all these cords. We just had so many people saying they wanted a separate space for the washer dryer that now we have a separate space in that closet area for that. So if you want to check that out, you're welcome to. But again, this is that dual suite, so it's going to have the 2 full bedrooms, 2 full baths.
Oh, this is
Outside wall and our slide. Do you know how the doors are attached to the back? We had ours fall out.
What floor plan do you have?
We have 310.
it's the silverware drawer.
Doors.
Oh.
Yeah, like the silverware drawer. It goes
Right out.
Serta.
That's cool how that goes to the side.
Yeah.
back in,
Change
but we
it
don't
from-
know, like, was there backers or something? Yeah.
It's kind of
It should have
still,
backers.
you know, soft.
I know they've started using different brackets and things like that, probably for reasons like that. So I would contact our customer service department and be like, what's different now? Well, I don't know, what year was yours?
2025, but early.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
really.
didn't get the new stuff.
Yeah.
Does it still have the rough edges, or is it the glazed birch?
It's the glaze.
Okay. So, yeah, you might just contact them, service@alliancerv.com, put in your last 6 of your VIN so that they know which one it is, because then they can run and see where those changes were possibly made, and see if it's an issue with like brackets being different or backers, maybe if it was something consistent.
I like the little trash can.
Yeah,
Yeah, just a little trash can. Takes you right out to the
yeah.
dump.
Then you don't have pets getting into it, you're not dragging it across the floor.
Yeah.
Always use laundry, trash, and shoes. Like
Yeah.
3 things that no RV manufacturer in 100 years addresses. Where do you put shoes?
Underneath that little stuff right there.
Yeah.
That's what we did it for.
Yep, that's the little, the little
That's actually
shoe-
why we did that.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
also, if a floor plan has a bench, sometimes it'll have underneath.
Yeah, my
open.
23
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Question between Paradigm and Avenue just being a mid-profile. There are, I mean, I mentioned the flooring, but there are some other different, the wall construction is going to be the same, the roofing construction is going to be the same, so we try to do a lot of the same process across the board, just so that if someone's looking at a Paradigm, decides they don't want to pay that price point, it's real easy to go to an Avenue. But it will have not as thick of an I-beam.
Okay.
It will, let's see, man, we keep upgrading Avenue so much. It used to be that it wouldn't have solid surface in the bathroom, but now our regular Avenue line does. So it's just little tiny differences because we're improving all the time.
Mine was built in February. So the ones that were built in January had glass cabinet doors and may or may not have had the Furrion
Yeah.
and a refrigerator for a single refrigerator door. And then mine now came with the solid wood doors and a French door
Yeah.
and the Furrions, and there was something else they had. And then the ones built right now don't have the, like on the sofa, there's like a little like shelf right here, a little narrow shelf. They're not putting that in.
There's so so many little differences.
Yeah.
I just got an email today that was like, are you washer dryer prepping Avenue or are you not? And I'm like, well, we weren't originally. Then we started doing it, so now we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might see units without it, but
Yeah,
now we are.
I have that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's gonna be my doghouse. The cabinet there.
Yeah.
It's got the 4 drawers. I'm gonna take the drawers out, and that's where my dog can sleep.
People get so creative with the space.
Yeah, he likes his little getaway.
Yeah. All right. Well, was there anything we failed to see that you guys were hoping for?
In the 310, maybe you know, maybe you don't. There's a pantry right here. So you have a 12-volt fridge. Right next to that is a pantry with Alliance. There's bookshelves, and then there's a space right below that last shelf, about knee height. There's not a space there. It's blocked off.
Right.
Panel, a
Right.
light, motion light. What's behind the panel? Is that reclaimable space in there, or is that all slide mechanism?
It's going to be
or-
minimal, not used space. It's going to be wiring. It's going to be probably plumbing coming back through
Yeah.
there. So I'm sure if you went online, you'd find people who have opened it up and figured out a way to compact all that a little bit better. But that's what you're going to find back there.
Okay, that's the dump you're talking about.
Yeah,
And
this
that's
one.
15,000 BTU.
This one's 13.5 BTU. Each of them will be in here. Of the 3.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that would get uncomfortable up there.
Thank you.
Any owners on site today?
You know, Ryan is traveling in Alabama. Bill might be here. Bill Martin.
Yeah, we talked to him online before.
I can see if he's up in his office. He loves to come down and meet you guys. Foley, I saw earlier today, but I haven't seen him in a while, so I don't know if he's off at meetings or not. But I can see if Bill's here.
I'm just interested to say, thanks for being so responsive.
You see inside the bay?
So this one doesn't have quite as much pass-through space just because we're compacting those 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in there.
Not quite as much, but it's still a small bedroom.
Oh, 2026 Starlink prep across the board as well.
Nice. Including a roof mount?
I don't know. No, it's just that prep in here and in there, yeah.
That's a nice color scheme.
So 2 full body paints, kind of an opportunity to see one option in the Paradigm line. We also offer a champagne color in place of the black. It's similar to this kind of color, the Alliance logo. And then here's that shaker machine that I was talking about earlier that the units will go
I got a
on.
silly question. Why don't people use destination trailers as normal?
Yeah, we don't recommend that.
But why? Is there
They're
a structural
not,
difference with
yeah,
that design?
definitely suspension difference. It's going to be a very basic suspension. It's not going to be made to be going across the roads that we were talking about. It's not made to do that. So suspension and the type of tires, all that is not going to be upgraded the way 5th wheels are going to be because it's made just to go maybe once, twice, build a deck around it, then you're done. Yeah.
Much better than a tiny home.
Why doesn't that slide topper go to its same
So slide topper prep is a standard for Paradigm. Putting the slide toppers on is an option in factory. But I mean, not everybody chooses it. And because it's slide topper prep, a lot of dealerships want to do that as an extra thing they're adding on.
30 hours labor. Yeah.
I've heard people say that their dealership said that they couldn't get the washer and dryer installed in factory. That's not true. It's not an advertised option, but it is an option. So I always tell people, if you're thinking about special ordering a unit, talk to our sales team first. We can work with that dealership, but if you have a question on like not putting a couch in, the dealership might say no, they're not going to do that, and we'll say yeah, we can do that. Now I will have sometimes people say, so what kind of price break does that give me? Nothing. Now we have to keep track of your unit, make sure it doesn't get those screws put in and everything else. So we will do little things like that, but it's really our team that would typically say yes versus a dealership that might say no.